Domain tools help security analysts turn threat data into threat intelligence. They take indicators from your network, including domains and IP addresses, and connect them with nearly every active domain on the internet. Those connections drive risk assessments, help profile attackers, guide online fraud investigations, and map cyber activity to attacker infrastructure. Fortune 1000 companies, global government agencies, and leading security solutions vendors use the Domain Tools platform as a critical ingredient in their threat investigations and proactive defenses. For more information, visit securityweekly.com/domain tools. The greatest threat to businesses today isn't the outsider trying to get in. It's the people you trust, the ones who already have the keys, your employees, your contractors, and privileged users. 60% of online attacks are carried out by insiders. To stop these insider threats, you need to see what users are doing before an incident occurs. Observe It combats insider threats by detecting risk activity, investigating in minutes, effectively responding, and stopping data lost. Give it a test drive at observeit.com/securityweekly. Are you looking for high-performance data storage that's easy to use yet secure enough for the Department of Defense? Look no further. Racktop Systems gives business software-defined data storage complete with embedded compliance, security, and data encryption. Don't let cyber threats, regulatory demands, or the complexity and growth of your data overwhelm your business. Racktop's high-performance data management platform gives you the tools you need to address the most demanding data challenges. Think beyond storage. To learn more, visit racktopsystems.com. Welcome back, everyone, to Enterprise Security Weekly. I am here with John Strand for the Enterprise Security News. The first story is VMware launches blockchain project. I know what you're thinking. Blockchain's another buzzword like machine learning. However, I want to go back. John, I don't know if you've watched this segment. Sharon Goldberg came on Business Security Weekly, and we asked Sharon to describe blockchain technologies and gave the best description. Like, I didn't understand it until Sharon explained it to me. And she described it as basically it's a log of transactions. And the use case outside of currency, she described, was protecting the supply chain. And if you could have that protected log that is afforded by the blockchain technologies, the use case in there was some kind of product. It was like,
I like the banana analogy. That
was
one works.
Coconuts or bananas or something. Yeah, like where has it gone, and if there was any changes, it's logged, and they were applying that, and that's essentially what VMware, the same kind of strategy they're employing when they say interested in employing blockchain technologies as an immutable engine for processing transactions across an extended supply chain is running high. That's correct.
Yeah, it is. And if you're looking at blockchain, kind of boiling it down again, so you have confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and you might have secrecy, right? You got the CIA triad. It is amazing for confidentiality and availability. The integrity and availability. My bad.
Yes, not
so with integrity, your blockchain and the ledger, the public ledger, the record, the log is public. Everyone can get it. It's distributed. And the integrity is validated because each individual ledger transaction that happens is hashed, and it also includes a hash of the previous transaction as well. So there's a tremendous amount of value, and I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm just going to say outright, anybody now who basically looks at blockchain and poo-poos it and says, oh, geez, blockchain, that's stupid. As soon as you say that, it basically clearly identifies that you know very little about the subject. And I'm going to throw myself under the bus because, Paul, we on the show
I was
absolutely
there too.
have ripped on it. But Bo and Mike, the people that work for me, have beat me into submission. Blockchain has a tremendous amount of value. There's no question about it. And I think that the Project Concord, to try to improve the efficiency of doing things like smart contracts and handling that effectively, is interesting, right? They're basically saying this is not a product segment to ignore. Right. It is weird whenever they start talking about the efficiency and the impact on the environment. I honestly didn't know that blockchain was that impactful on the environment. I know it would generate a lot of CPU cycles, but I don't see exactly how this would improve the CPU performance of blockchain implementation. Did you get any more out of this? It's weird.
Yeah,
they're talking about the project, then all of a sudden they're like impact on the environment halfway through. It was a bit of an abrupt jarring shift in the article.
Yeah, in the interview, Sharon talks about some of the differences in the blockchain technologies. One being a completely public ledger, and one being kind of basically you validate your miners so that only certain people can be a miner, essentially. And so I think that there's some of those differences. It depends on how it's implemented. And I think a closing note, what Sharon underscored was that blockchain, specifically as it was introduced with Bitcoin, is one of the greatest computer science achievements in her mind that we've seen in modern times. And after she explained it, I'm like, yeah, like the computer science behind it is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I officially, Paul, I know this is hard for us to admit. I officially am going to say that John Strand was horribly wrong. Yes. On this particular topic.
Yes, because I think we just viewed it as another buzzword, and
well, it is, right?
Yeah, it is, and it is used that way. And I think it's a shame that it does have merits, mostly in currency. I mean, people admit it is very specific to currency, but emerging are these other techniques and use cases rather. For this technology, which the technology, say what you will about the volatility of cryptocurrency, right? And I think that's another reason why it gets kind of a bad reputation is that volatility in those markets. But look at the underlying computer science behind this technology is amazing.
Well, and it's fundamentally going to change things. I mean, if you look at database integrity and database security, right? If I break into your database right now, I can change the records however I want. You hear the phrase garbage in, garbage out, which is crap. In most environments today, it's garbage in, gospel out. If I can change what's on that database, like if I say, Paul, you now owe $2 million on your home loan, which you don't, right? But if I can make the database of whatever bank you're using for your loan say that, that's the truth. That's the God's honest truth, and no one will be able to argue with that. However, if I take your home loan and we put it into a blockchain, and every single time you make a payment, it's basically that immutable chain that goes through. And immutable should be in quotes, right, or have an asterisk behind it. But it's basically now you have that integrity of the payment history, and I just can't go through and change it on the fly unless you got the 51% attack and dealing with consensus. But it absolutely does fundamentally change the way that we all need to be looking at data. So this is weird for us, but yeah, we were on the bashing bandwagon, and we shouldn't have been.
Yep. So there's a vendor, Cavanix, brings risk foresight to hybrid cloud workload deployments.
What the hell was this one? I read this one twice. I didn't know what the hell they did.
I can't figure out machine learning and predictive analytics technology that provides compliance risk mitigation capabilities.
Is this the one that went Series B last week? No, it's not. That was a different one.
That was a different one, yeah.
That did something very similar, I think. I don't know.
Well, it provides compliance features for workloads that span both on-premise and cloud deployments. Again, this is kind of speaking to the integrity issue we were just talking about, which is why I thought it was somewhat interesting. But I think just poorly worded and communicated exactly what problem they're solving.
Well, and you know what? To be completely honest, they basically took the Unomic technology, which was a narrow market solution, and broadened it for data centers. Which, once again, I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that means either. Yeah.
So I don't think they wrote this. This is somebody else. Yeah. Well, they probably did write this. I don't. So bad.
Anyway,
I actually feel bad for Sean, the guy that wrote this article. What is it, Sean Kerner? Because he probably got like a hodgepodge of PowerPoint presentations and like, hey, write an article about this. Right? And he's like, what the hell?
Yeah. So Lacework has raised new funds to extend cloud security capabilities. They got a Series B round. Polygraph helps organizations detect potential threats. I thought that, it's interesting when, John, you were talking about the various rounds in how as a consumer you might not care. I think if you got to get through the problem,
you got to care.
Yeah, you got to get through
you got to care.
You got to get through the problem and solution first. If that makes sense, then I think you got to look at funding. And when you're going for a B round, typically, right, not in every case, it means they've proven themselves in the market to sell it enough that someone's giving them a B round and more money. And I don't know what their B round was, but their total funding's $32 million, which is a pretty decent amount of funding up into a B. It means they're selling product and they're solving the problem for some people, I think is the important point that I wanted to just get across in this story. Well, congratulations to Lacework. That's Series B is an awesome milestone for a company, but if you're shopping around, it's a good data point to have because it means they're likely solving some problems for people.
Well, and also looking at it like kind of where we're at, they say they have 30 customers. All right, so we have about 15. What we do and what this means is usually with these small companies like us, we go through and we have customers and we constantly are improving the product based on the customer feedback. So if I'm looking at Lacework and what they're doing everything right? They're starting small. They're getting a small group of customers. They're incorporating the customer's feedback back into the product. And somehow they have proved to Sutter Hill Ventures that there's value. Like it's not just an idea. They've actually executed that idea effectively with their current customer base. So you're absolutely right. Congratulations to them. And hopefully we can get a good write-up of what they're doing and what Polygraph is. That isn't just a vendor press release.
Canonical, who's a name I've heard before, is being touted as improving Ubuntu Linux security. Now, what I gleaned from it was their messaging on solving the cryptojacking problem, right? Mm-hmm. Which, yes, if you leave Linux computers not secured, someone's going to grab it and use it to either send a DDoS or do some crypto mining. But what I thought was interesting is they've got a Snap application packaging system that looks like it improves upon the packaging system to help keep your systems up to date. Where I got confused is they started talking about containers and being able to shape the container and define what a container is allowed to do. So I don't know. They lost me in the messaging. Are you securing Ubuntu or are you securing containers or both, or what is it?
I got this. So APTs, right? And RPMs, right? Mm-hmm. So with Advanced Packaging Tool and Red Hat Package Manager, you can have a package that'll install on the operating system, right? And if you want to update, you do apt-get update, and you can install or do whatever you want from APT. Mm-hmm. So imagine an APT or an RPM that was like a mini Docker for that application. So what you would have with Snaps, it's basically like a little micro container that would run like Chrome, right? Mm-hmm. And you would run within that software package, and you don't have to worry about dependencies or anything. And they all basically, and there's also some sandboxing that you can do. So now if you want to update it, it's very, very much like a container. You just can simply update that specific Snap package on the system, and it's all self-contained. It's not something that's hooking into a whole bunch of libraries. So you remember years ago with RPM Hell, where you're working through dependencies, and this application will require this version of this dynamic link library, and this one will require this version of the dynamic link library. So you're going to do a symbolic link for this app to go to this DLL and a separate symbolic link to go to, it sucked. Mm-hmm. But imagine having all that rolled into a very, very small, quote unquote, container for that specific application, making it much easier to maintain and update in the process. So
now that you say that, yes, I have seen some applications packaged in Snap, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. And it does definitely solve that problem. And I think have great security benefits.
Oh,
as
yeah,
well,
absolutely.
Because we all, those of us that have been around for a while remember, like, hey, I've got an Ubuntu system and I'm doing all my package updates. But then there was that one use case where I had to go off and compile an application, and then it didn't match the libraries that came in through the package manager. So I had to manually download a whole bunch of other libraries and compile them, and then link that to my compiled application. And then that application was running. And then I'm like, well, I'm secure, but no, you haven't updated all that custom stuff you put on the system. So
good God, we're so old.
Right.
But isn't it nice though that like these problems that we went through are not the problems our children will have to go through. They're going to have completely brand new problems, which is awesome.
Qualys is messaging on their passive network sensor, which again, as I pointed out, from what I gleaned here, because obviously I worked at Tenable, when I first started at Tenable, we actually spent a lot of time with the passive vulnerability scanner, as it was called back then, PVS, and the patents were made very clear to me as I was producing content that would be used in marketing, right?
Well, Ron Gula got us shirts that actually had the patent on it. I don't know if you remember. Yeah, he was kind of big into that patent for a while.
And I think it was Matt Alderman that was telling me too that they're very defendable patents. That there's different levels of patents, and these particular patents are very highly defendable, which is awesome. And the patents are centered around passively detecting vulnerabilities. So when we look at Qualys, that has to compete in the market with Tenable, they've got the passive story, but it seems very focused on asset discovery, not detecting vulnerabilities because of Tenable's patents. So
well, in this whole entire write-down at Market Screener, vulnerability is used once, and that's where they explain Qualys as a company doing vulnerability management. Never else, when they're talking about the passive asset inventory, did they talk about vulnerabilities. Yeah. And I agree with you. I think that was completely intentional.
Yeah, but I think it's a valid move for Qualys too. I mean, a patent is a patent, right? But you got to try and be competitive in the market. And if you have a big Qualys, installation, everyone's requirements are different. You want some of that visibility into the stuff you may not know about. I think this is a great move for Qualys.
Very cool.
I'm also very happy for our friends at Minerva Labs as well. And I think it's interesting that this was not an acquisition, that this was a partnership. Even more good for them at Minerva, establishing themselves as a company that's just not going to get swallowed up. I want to see them make good market traction. So they brokered this deal with McAfee for EPO. And the statement I think is so relevant, right? Because now Minerva is deployed alongside McAfee endpoint security. Adversaries, they say, are forced to pick their poison. Either the adversary implements evasive tactics, which get picked up by Minerva, or they use non-evasive techniques, which are likely to get picked up by McAfee endpoint. You specifically, John, have talked about this problem of rip and replace, not rip and replace with your endpoint. Here's a case where you can supplement it. I think it's a great strategy.
And that's where, if you're going to be in the desktop arena, that's where you have to go.
Yeah.
So if you look at Lenny and the team at Minerva, they can try to take on McAfee. Go for it.
Right.
Eventually McAfee and Symantec are going to start implementing the kind of cyber deception for malware that Minerva has. Right. So if they have patents for it, then they'll just buy the company, or they'll just decide to fight you in court, and you can't win that fight. But if you're trying to do something in the endpoint that is novel, this is the best way to do it. Basically, do an integration with one of the big players and seek some type of cover. And it's a good play by Minerva. Of course, they're not stupid people. We know them. They're very, very, very bright there.
Great move. Congrats to Eddie and Lenny and the whole team over at Minerva. I thought it was a great announcement. Now, what's interesting, Bitdefender. We've covered Bitdefender. This is a company with two totally different solutions. So when you read about Bitdefender and they're talking about an endpoint security product, it's more of like a traditional AV product, which is great. I mean, they've got a good feature set there, and that's what this article is about. Now, don't get that confused with some of the other things that Bitdefender is doing. They've got some really cool like hypervisor security that's targeted at large enterprises. Pay attention to that. If you're listening to this show and you're just burnt out on the endpoint thing and you're not shopping for endpoint, I think Bitdefender is a little more focused on the consumer market anyhow. But on the enterprise side, pay attention to Bitdefender when they start talking about their hypervisor and virtual platform security. It's really good. We did a briefing with them at Black Hat, and I was impressed with their technology. So,
now, do you look at them as a vendor? And I honestly don't know much about them because we don't encounter them very often. Do you look at them as a vendor that's been predominantly in the home space, and now they're trying to make inroads into the enterprise market?
I think there's some of that going on too, and I think that they're based in Estonia, I believe, is where the company comes from. So that may have caused some hesitation on the enterprise space. However, I don't think you should use that as an excuse to discount their solutions. And they're a very deep engineering based organization, in the sense that I got. So I think that they're trying to. My guess is they're trying to message into the enterprise more. On a completely different solution rather than the endpoint. So I think they're trying to diversify. Yeah. So you said something about CrowdStrike, advanced malware searches and hybrid.
Let's jump over the SailPoint one. The SailPoint one makes my head hurt.
Yeah. Identity space is anyway.
So I wanted to talk about this some more whenever we were doing the interview. So CrowdStrike has the ability now that you can import Yara rules and do a search across your entire environment for things that match those Yara signatures. And while I think by and large that's absolute complete garbage, if you're using Yara and you're writing your own Yara rules and you're catching malware, that basically just shows that CrowdStrike sucks horribly at what they're doing. However, that doesn't mean that this is absolutely worthless. Actually, that's not at all what this means. But if you're looking at it like that, you're looking at it the wrong way. The reason why this is important is there's a large number of organizations out there. Let's just use government. Let's just use DoD, intelligence community, right? If you're looking to implement a product in your environment, you can't simply take malware that is discovered in your environment, throw it up to CrowdStrike, and say, hey, you guys missed this, write a signature for it. And the reason why is as soon as that signature hits, the adversaries now know that that specific implant has been burnt, and then they will just simply re-instrument a new one and bypass it again. It becomes an arms race and it escalates. So for some organizations that are extremely sensitive, this means a lot. Like, this is tremendously cool. This now means that you can have your core CrowdStrike functionality. And if you want to write your own signature to basically detect some malware that you have found that CrowdStrike maybe missed. Not saying CrowdStrike's crap in that situation, but let's just say that CrowdStrike missed that malware. And you want to be able to detect and eradicate that malware without tripping off the adversary that it has been detected by CrowdStrike. Yara is going to be awesome for that. So this is very, very, very cool. Like I said, especially in the organizations I used to work with, DoD, IC, we would fight this problem all the time where we know we have malware, but we don't want to let the AV vendor know because the AV vendor is going to write a signature. And then the adversary will know that their implant has been burned, and then they're going to re-instrument it again. And we want them to bang against that wall as long as we possibly can. So I like this. This is cool. It gives you that type of functionality. But if you're looking at this as like a standard organization that's not being targeted by nation state adversaries, yeah, this probably isn't a product for you. But if you are one that is being targeted by nation state attackers, this is very, very cool news.
Awesome. So we had an announcement from Atos, which seems like they're targeting the manufacturers of IoT devices and services, which I think we're seeing is kind of an emerging field, right? Like people know that we have this huge IoT security problem. If you're manufacturing anything that uses IoT, you're likely now in search of a vendor to help you secure that. You know, we did the interviews with Microsoft on their Azure Sphere. Atos sounds like a similar kind of thing when they say they deliver, manage, and secure the full IoT value chain from connected devices to edge computing to analytics to smart business solutions. It sounds like a similar thing. And I think these companies are gaining a lot of traction as IoT security basically becomes part of the business now. I think it went from this, hey, no one's going to find our devices, they're too small to implement security, to today where it's entering into the equation of the purchaser. And
you know, there's Paul, there's a video out there. Like if you're talking about IoT, that is amazing. It's by James Minkins. He's a Harvard professor, and it's his keynote at Usenix. You have to watch his keynote at Usenix. It's not just a great presentation, but it's probably one of the best presentations on artificial intelligence, computer security, IoT security I have ever seen.
Nice.
In the past 20 years. But James Minkins, he has a section, it's about 3/4 of the way through, where he says IoT security is boring. And the reason why IoT security is boring is because he said IoT security is like this. A bunch of vendors said, hey, you know what? We're going to take everything we possibly could have come up with for computer security and all the best practices that we've learned over the past 30 years. We're going to throw it out the window because nothing bad could possibly ever happen. And no, and then they fall off a cliff. And I think that sums it up.
It does.
But it's great to look at it from the perspective of IoT security being boring as an individual product by product by product problem, right? Because it's just people doing dumb things, you know, embedding passwords of, 1, 2, 3, 4 or admin, right?
Yep.
But as an enterprise, it is a very relevant problem because you have TVs. Have you hacked your TV like recently? I mean, how many embedded devices do you have in your house? I mean, you got like 4 or 5 TVs. I think your toaster, our fridges, right?
Fridges, certainly. Yes. The smart things, controllers and stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
So an individual problem is not that interesting, but whenever you couple that with an entire infrastructure, an entire company, it becomes just this horrific nightmare that you can't get your hands around.
Now, my most fun one that I think at home that still kind of like makes me giddy is my sprinkler system. I put the IoT device as the head end for my sprinkler system. And so I literally sometimes I just go show off in front of my neighbors and I just walk around the yard with my phone and like turn my sprinklers on and off.
You gotta send me which one you have because we did the fridge thing.
Yeah,
we can be fridge Twinkies, but now we can be sprinkler system Twinkies too.
The software still kind of sucks on
the
software still kind of sucks on the fridge though. We both had the Samsung.
It's horrible.
Fridge. It's
bad.
awful. Like it doesn't even. If someone were to hack it, I'd feel bad because their shit is just gonna crash. Like it's not even.
So sad.
It's just
so sad.
Just my wife just saw the washer and dryer that integrate with the Amazon Echo platform. And she's like, why don't we have that? I'm like, I don't know. Our washer and dryer died and we needed something fast because we have
Probably
5 people.
To die.
Well, you have 5 people in your house too. You get behind, talk about technical debt. Laundry debt is a thing when 5 people
is
are
absolutely good. Oh, that is such a great analogy of technical debt. That is literally the best analogy of technical debt ever. So.
Last story, Manage Engine adds Skype for Business to their reporting and Exchange Reporter Plus product platforms. Manage Engine is a decent vendor. I like them for A lot of their solutions. I think they have a valid play in the market, of course, but Skype for Business is just horrible. It's just kind of my soapbox for what Microsoft has done with Skype is just horrible. It's just awful. I mean, we've used Skype almost since like day one on the.
Yep.
I mean, there was lots of other solutions.
It sucked pretty much since day one too.
I mean, it went through fits and starts. I think that Microsoft is really just hardcore killing it now. I think you've seen a kind of nice graph of waves of Skype working or not working. But now Microsoft is just burying. I mean, the latest update for Skype killed full screen. And every call I get on with Skype for Business is a nightmare, technology-wise. And if you're in the corporate setting and you're looking, so you look at how Microsoft is treating Skype, you start to wonder, like, security-wise, are they even paying attention to it? Like, this is dangerous territory. Anytime I feel like it's being neglected at Microsoft, I don't know what's going on. But if you're looking for another solution, what we found in our research is that Zoom is a great platform.
Yep.
And that pretty much seems to be consistent across the board. Zoom customers seem to be pretty happy, and we're going to be switching over much of our stuff to Zoom. So
very cool.
And that will wrap up this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. John, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.